Hey everybody, I'm Marcus Hazelwood, and welcome to Clear Haze Exchange. I'm an energy engineer with over 15 years of experience in sustainability and energy efficiency consulting. Many find these topics a little complex, so I created Clear Haze Exchange to help provide clear, actionable insight. Clearing the haze, so to speak. We'll cover plenty of topics under the umbrella of energy efficiency and sustainability. Let's get into today's conversation.
I was inspired to start Long Way Home after my Peace Corps service because of what I saw while I was here. I saw a lot of people who were really kind to me, and I saw a lot of people that were suffering. I saw a lot of little boys and girls walking around carrying firewood and water instead of going to school. I saw people without food. I saw people without homes. And that's what's kept us here. That's what's motivating us, that we've got a real collaboration going with this community.
So Matt, welcome to the show. Matt Panitz is a founder and executive director of Long Way Home, a nonprofit-based organization in San Juan, Comalapa, Guatemala. His journey began in 2002 as a Peace Corps volunteer, where he witnessed firsthand the systemic challenges facing indigenous communities. Motivated by a deep moral obligation to address environmental and social injustices, Matt founded LWH in 2004. Under his leadership, the organization has pioneered green building techniques using recycled materials, developed innovative educational models, and empowered local youth through hands-on learning and civic engagement. With degrees in sustainability and education, Matt has fused practical design with purpose-driven pedagogy, transforming trash into schools and students into change makers. Matt, welcome to the show.
It's really great to be here, and that is a great way to start it off. Great explanation.
Yeah, I think that the work that you've done and just looking through your website and where you've been, it's incredible work and incredible opportunity to kind of get insight on the great things that you've done. So I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. We really, we spend a lot of time in the field and don't really, get too many opportunities to talk about what we do and how we do it. So this is a great opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Great. So diving right into it, can you take us back to your first experience in Guatemala and what drew you and what inspired the founding of Long Way Home?
Yeah, so I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And so before that, I was a paramedic and decided that I was going to shake things up a little bit, join the Peace Corps, and they assigned me to Guatemala. And I had never heard of Guatemala at that point, hadn't really traveled the world very much. And then you spend 3 months in training, living with a family, and then they put you out in a site all by yourself. And so what I saw was extreme poverty. I'd never seen anything like the extreme poverty that I saw there. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. Right? We're
Mm.
talking about people with not enough food, electricity, living in fairly rundown houses and lacking sanitation facilities, like it's a very difficult existence when you live in a rural, developing nation. And so that led me to start Long Way Home after my Peace Corps service.
Wow. So you described your work as a moral obligation. How has that shaped your leadership and vision for LWH over the years?
Yeah, that moral obligation was, it's a personal thing. And so what that did was, after my Peace Corps service, I went back to the United States, tried to get a normal job. I enrolled in college and tried to start life back up again. But, it was always in the corner of my mind, the people that I met. And so, I bought a 1988 Volkswagen Jetta. I raffled my 73 Caprice Classic convertible, drove all the way to Guatemala, set up shop. And so what I did was set the example, right? That was my leadership was I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to drive down and I'm going to set up shop and I'm going to show how far I'm willing to take this. And, there were other people that jumped in because they were like, I feel something similar. Let's do this together.
That's exciting. Uh, So jumping into green building techniques and sustainability, so Longway Home is known for turning trash into schools. Can you walk us through the green building techniques you're using to achieve that?
Sure, sure. So whenever we started in Comalapa, we were building a city park. And we, built the first grass soccer field in that town. That made us real popular, right? Because everybody loves playing soccer in that town. And so like the local neighborhood kids, we were charging like 25 cents to get in, but a lot of the local neighborhood kids couldn't pay that 25 cents. So what we said was, if you'll take a plastic bottle and fill all the wrappers that we're seeing on the ground and put them in that bottle and compact them, then you can get into the park for free. And so we ended up with like 10,000 bottles, right? And so also while we were building the park, we saw people, kids carrying firewood on their head rather than going to school, and little girls carrying water. And they were spending all their time collecting the basic resources to live. So I talked to the other co-founder of Long Way Home and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about scaling this whole thing up and going outside of the park. So let's build a school." This guy says, "Have you ever considered building a school out of trash?" It's like, I've never even heard of, never even considered building something out of trash. He gave me this book called Earthship Volume 1. And what we saw was that you put a tire on the ground, you get a sledgehammer, you pack that tire with dirt, and then you keep doing it, and eventually you can build a house. So we
Mm.
practiced with a couple of structures. First of all, we did a tire house, then we did an earth bag house. That told us that we could build an entire school campus. So now we've used earth bags, tires, Ubuntu blocks, eco bricks, bamboo, you name it, we've pretty well tried it on this campus.
And these are even materials, like you mentioned, bamboo, materials that can be reproduced easily. This is a valuable product in the world of commercial building. There's not a lot of carbon impact or greenhouse gas emissions. Where were you using the bamboo?
So in Comalapa, it's the area is majorly or deforested, right? So you can get lumber, but it's expensive, and you kind of feel bad doing it because there's not a lot of trees in the area. So like we're constantly trying to figure out what you should do to add roofs to our buildings. And so we used bamboo to make roof trusses, right? And then added corrugated metal on top of the roof trusses. And that was a fantastic use of bamboo rather than using lumber. And we also used the bamboo throughout the campus. Like anywhere that you might use lumber, we pretty well tried to use bamboo instead, because along the coastal areas of Guatemala, there's a lot of bamboo available.
Mm. So how did you balance innovation with practicality and resources constraining the environment? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you balance that with all the things that you found to use?
Well, it's a tricky situation, really, because you can use only natural materials to build the entire campus, right? But it would take 175 years. We could grow our own trees. We could grow our own straw to mix with the cob. So we've used some conventional materials, of course. So, the floors are pretty well done out of concrete. We also built barrel vault domes and arches. So we're using conventional materials such as rebar, sand, gravel, cement, and we're mixing that in with the alternative materials that we're using. That speeds up the process. Concrete dries in a day, where cob, or adobe takes weeks.
And so what are the energy values from the trash that you're using to convert into use for the building materials? Are you are you finding that some of the tires or materials that you're using add even additional value from an energy standpoint?
Sure, because a tire wall is 2 feet thick, and the tires themselves are packed with dirt. The buildings maintain a constant temperature. So you don't have to heat them, you don't have to cool them, right? And it's steady. And, there's a lot of people in the area that live in cinder block houses. Cinder block houses do not maintain a consistent temperature. So they have to heat them by burning a lot of wood. And tire houses, that is not necessary.
Mm, that's very valuable. So to be able to maintain the same temperature. So are these places within under tree canopies, or are they right there out in the sun to where you're still able to maintain those same interior temperatures?
Yeah, there's a few trees in the area, but really it's pretty well a wide open space. And we also the buildings all have a south face. And yeah, sorry. The buildings all have a south face. So the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and we get all of the sunshine throughout the entire day. That helps to build up the temperature for when it's necessary.
So, what roles do the locals have in understanding these concepts around energy efficiency? And like you mentioned, you can maintain temperature better than the traditional building. So, are they bringing these ideas? Are you finding these out through test and over time?
Well, it took us 17 years to do this campus, right? 20 buildings. And that is not because we're slow builders. That is because we started with an idea, then had to test it out. Then, once we got comfortable with it, uh, we started collaborating with the Guatemalan builders. Now, the Guatemalan builders have, of course, never heard of building with a tire, right? They're used to cinder block. Now, the thing is, the concepts are the same. You want walls to be plumb and level, right, as you're going up. And so they completely got that idea. But as we were developing these concepts together, it took time. And quite often we had to, you know, build an entire wall and then tear the entire thing down because the wall was unsteady or we packed it too hard. And so what they brought in was really the ability to deal with everything locally. They knew how to source all of the materials. They knew, and also they're really good at taking random scavenged pieces of materials and then turning them into something. Right. And so, we still to this day completely rely on the locals to accomplish everything.
Wow. Wow. So there's a lot of education and empowerment in this from what you're saying. So could you tell us a little about what is CETC and how environmental education is integrated into your curriculum?
First of all, most of our students are low income students, right? And so our tuition is like $1 a month, sometimes $2 a month. And most people can't afford that. But for the people who can't, they give us an eco brick. So that is a plastic bottle filled with trash. So every single month, all of our students, and there's 178 of them, bring the trash that they collect from their neighborhood and from their houses, and then turn that in. And then we use those materials with them to build the infrastructure even outside of the campus. So with the students, we're building ventilated stoves, compost latrines, water tanks, tire retaining walls, classrooms, and houses. And we have integrated the process by which you do that into the standard curriculum. And we divided it across the subject matter. Right. So in math class, we're no longer doing abstract math. They're using their math to figure out how to design the stove or how to build an arch over a doorway. They're using social studies class to figure out who needs what it is that we're doing in the community. So the students, like, it's second nature for them at this point. We don't even necessarily call it environmental education anymore because it's so integrated into the entire process, and they've gotten really, really good at it.
Wow, that's good. So what are some powerful outcomes that you've seen from students engaging in the hands-on sustainability projects that you're providing to this community?
One of my favorite stories recently was whenever I heard that outside of class, that some of our students were building stoves in the neighborhood for families that needed stoves, right? Normally, this is done through school. Our students are now doing this on their own outside of school, right? That is really the dream, that they learn how to do it and that they take on this ability and then help out community members themselves. Also, I've seen on multiple occasions now groups of fifth graders and sixth graders going into homes, building stoves, water tanks, compost latrines. You know, can you imagine fifth, sixth graders building these structures? It's phenomenal.
Wow, that's incredible. This is the type of hands-on experience is just amazing. Just myself growing up, there wasn't a lot of that, and really in America, and uh, a lot of this education being focused around what do they need for their daily survival. And I really like the point that you're making about being able to immediately take that home and use it to not only empower their families, but to support the rest of their community through what they've learned. Um, that's incredibly powerful. So as you explore, how education and green building is being reinforced within this education process, you're building a school, you're seeing the students learn it, and then actually take it home and use it. So how do you ensure that the curriculum is locally relevant and globally informed at the same time?
So we conduct surveys, right? And we go out, based on what we're doing in social studies class, we go into the community and the students conduct surveys. They go from house to house, they map out a neighborhood, they figure out what families don't have what piece of infrastructure, then they go back into the classrooms, they figure it out and talk about what we're going to do next. That makes what we're doing in the classroom awfully locally relevant because we're addressing immediate needs. We're addressing immediate needs, midterm needs, and long term needs because we're also planting trees, right? We're also doing village wide water projects. We're doing water filtration systems. We're doing floors. And then everything that we're doing, we document, we put it on our website, and we make sure that it's available to people internationally as well. Because whenever we started this process, there were not a lot of resources for us. We had Earthship Volume 1, and that's how we figured out how to do tires. But then the rest of the information was spread across 20 or 30 books that you have to kind of piece together on your own. Our idea was let's put it all in one place and let's make it easy for the next people that would like to do this.
So, and we kind of touched on the community impacts and the collaboration that your organization is bringing to these communities. Um, what trends and what trends or technologies that you're seeing these days are you most excited about incorporating into the curriculum now, or the facilities that you have, or are you considering newer technologies?
Well, the thing that's been the most successful really has been the tire retaining walls. Whenever we started, none of us had ever heard of a tire retaining wall. And now when you drive around Guatemala, they are all over the place. They're so prevalent that it's actually become difficult for us to find tires. So when we
Right.
started this, we would, drive a flatbed truck along the Inter-American Highway, which is about 20, 30 miles from our town, and we could fill up a truck with six, 700 tires in a couple of hours, and they would give them to us for free. Right now, whenever we drive around, we struggle to get 100 and they're trying to charge us for them. Right. So, we've actually created, a business model for other people who are involved in the retaining wall process. As far as emerging technologies go, we're really leaving that in the hands of the students and teachers. The idea was get it going. right? Build the school, work on the curriculum, and then put the students and the teachers in a position to where they can develop the technologies from here. And so now we know our sixth graders are interested in wind power. The seventh graders are interested in solar power. The eighth graders are interested in water power, right? They're starting to emerge into their own space with ideas to explore the possibilities.
That's good. So what advice would you give to someone just starting in this field, going into communities and helping areas like you described, whether it's from coming from, schooling and having the passion that you have, or someone who is already involved but wants to extend their involvement in communities like you're helping now?
Sure, it's tricky to go into a small rural town and have access to the community. And the way that we did that was we worked really hard. So whenever it was time to build a building, the local builders would show up at 7. We were at work at 5, right? And we made sure that they saw that we were at work at 5. And then we stayed until 7 or 8 o'clock. And that was really over time how we earned the respect. And that happened over 17 years. We earned the respect of the local people by showing that we were going to work every bit as much as hard as everybody else, and that we would never ask anybody to do something that we were not willing to do ourselves. And so earning that level of respect is the very bottom line. And then following up, like there's a long history of people making promises and those promises not being fulfilled. Well, you fulfill your promises, you earn the respect, then you have access to the people in the community, then you can really uh, fulfill the ideas that you're passionate about.
Mm, that's good. It's really good. Building that trust and rapport with that community. They're looking at you like, I'm not just going to automatically trust you because you seem like you have a passion to do something. You have to earn it through showing. That certainly makes sense. So with that said, how do you stay grounded and focused in a space that's constantly evolving?
I go back to academics, right? So, a lot of what we're talking about is very action based, right?
Mhm.
And I really like the building part of this, but this is also grounded in theory. There are a lot of people out in the academic world talking about the best way to go about doing these things. And so, every once in a while, I'll put the sledgehammer down, get a few books out, read about what people have been doing in the past and in the present to have develop a better understanding of what's going on in the world now, what people are saying, how they're saying it, what's needed, like stop and think about what's going on around you. And I do that on a fairly regular basis these days.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said there, and particularly in staying focused on one thing, especially in America where there's so many different opportunities. You can do this, you can do that. There's a lot to be said about being in an environment where you're isolated and can fully focus.
Yeah. And that's what I really liked about one of the things I really liked about Comalapa was that they roll up the carpets at like 8, and there's not much to do at night, and you're not necessarily always able to stream, and you don't always have electricity, and so sometimes you find yourself reading by candlelight. And then after that happens over the a long period of time, you've made your way through quite a few books and really understood the context, and then that keeps me focused, grounded, and connected to the people around me.
But so what have been some of the biggest challenges in scaling LWH's work?
I'd say the biggest challenge is that we're so focused on our program services. How are we doing this work? How well is it being received? Is it replicable? Um, you know, like we don't get out that much, right? We don't do a lot of podcasts and we don't promote very well because we really want the quality of the work that we're doing to be extremely well informed. And, if nobody knows what we're doing, it's awfully hard to scale. And plus, like, whenever you first say, hey, we're going to build a school out of trash, people really don't know what you're talking about. And it sounds like it's going to look trashy, you know? And so collecting the information, publishing the information, making sure that people understand that it doesn't actually look like trash when you're finished, they look like normally plastered walls. We've gotten past that. And yeah, I would say like replication of the curriculum has been pretty difficult as well, because in order for what we're doing to be accepted by other schools, we have to meet the standards set by the Ministry of Education as far as developing curriculum goes. And that takes a long time. So you basically have to do all of the work, understand the work, and then turn that work into actual lesson plans. That takes a long time.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. No, I would encourage listeners to look at your videos that you have showing some of this, because the visual is really really a good part of it, and some amazing videos that you guys have done showing that actual work, what it looks like. As you mentioned, 17 years, that's a long time, but a lot of progress it seems like just from the video. I mean, it looks like a National Geographic video. It's amazing the what you're showing and what you're doing there. So, what lessons have you learned about sustainability that you wish more people would understand?
I'd really focus the most on how possible it is to replace some of the conventional materials with trash. The way that you can, and even with using cob, right, natural materials. Uh, it takes a lot of energy to process cement and a lot of the conventional materials that are used. And if you take the time, you really can replace a lot of those conventional materials with the natural materials. And even though it takes more time, it's ultimately worth it for the benefit of the planet, for the people that are involved, for the techniques that you're using in order to do the construction, and the long-term effect. I find it, to be really important in the sustainability world.
So, what is that kind of cycle that you're looking at down the road to use new materials, or you just pull waste from other areas? What is the thought process going forward in terms of building this even further?
It's mostly based on the fact that we would like the students at our school to really explore what the possibilities are beyond what they've already seen us do. There's this thing called the Ubuntu block, right? The Ubuntu block is another form of construction using trash, but it's basically instead of putting the wrappers inside of a plastic bottle, you can create a compression machine that is manual, or I'm sure automatic. You compress all of those loose pieces of plastic into what looks like a cinder block, or what's formed like a cinder block. You wrap it with baling wire, and then that becomes basically the same concept as a cinder block. And we use those whenever it's like something that we can't get into a bottle as well. And then you could figure out, how much extra rubbish can be used in between two columns by really focusing on the Ubuntu block.
Are you fluent in their language, or how does communication play into this?
Yeah, great question. I wouldn't say that I'm fluent in the fact that I think fluent means you're a native speaker, but I do speak Spanish, and I can communicate and do communicate in Spanish on a regular basis. And another way to stay grounded for me has been when I'm in the States, we spend a lot of time in cars. And whenever you're spending time in cars, you're not talking to that many people while you're in transport. Whenever I'm in Guatemala, it can take 2 hours to walk a mile to get into town, because you actually take the time to stop and talk to the people that you encounter along the way. If I'm going to go get milk and eggs, it doesn't take 5 minutes to get milk and eggs. It takes 45 minutes, because the person at the store goes, how's your family? How are you doing? Would you like to come in for a cup of coffee? Do you want to check out my family album? I spend the time to get to know the people in the area. And that has also been great because, now I understand what's going on with people and we can relate to each other because they're staring at me like, wow, you don't look like anybody else around here. And I'm looking at them going like, what's going on in your life? And it doesn't really take long for us to figure out that we have a lot in common. We have a lot going on. We're both human beings. We're both trying to figure out life. We're both trying to come up with solutions. And that entire process grounds me on a regular basis.
So looking ahead, what's next for Long Way Home and any new initiatives or partnerships that you're looking to develop? Like you said, you want to be able to leave an impact on these small communities to where they can take this and run with it. So is this something you'd like to take to other communities? What's next for Long Way Home?
This is when it gets really exciting, right? And so the campus is nearly complete. And now we're ready for partnerships. So, one partnership with Engineers Without Borders, and they know that we have access to the people in the area. So, what they could do is come in and they bring large scale water projects to entire villages. And so, we could partner with other Engineers Without Borders type chapters who are looking for good places to do projects. We also build floors. So, we partnered with Terra Firma Floors. We're building 12 floors per month. We're partnered with WADA, which is Water Access to All People, and we're passing out water filters. We're also doing a green building workshop from October the 20th to November the 14th. That is going to be the Indiana Jones version of what we do because a bunch of us get together, students, teachers, volunteers. We go out into the community, into a small village, and we build a couple of classrooms using the same techniques. And and then a smaller village that would otherwise struggle with that has access to some of those facilities. On top of that, even more exciting is we're getting close to finishing the lesson plans for our curriculum. The moment that those lesson plans are done, we're going to pass them along to the other public schools in our town. And those public schools are also going to adopt the process by which we build infrastructure projects for the people living in extreme poverty. So we're about to go from a couple of hundred people working on this to a couple of thousands. And as far as I know, that's not happening, where a couple of thousand public school students in one town are aggressively addressing the most important needs of the people in that town. So that's the most exciting thing is thousands of people using their subject matter to address extreme poverty.
That's good. And these are all taking place in San Juan,
Yeah, it's all
these
going to take
workshops?
place in Comalapa for now, but what
Okay.
we're expecting is that the next town over is going to see this and be like, wait a second, the seventh, eighth, ninth, and 10th graders can address the extreme poverty in the area. We don't have to rely on major organizations, USAID, government institutions. We can handle all this in-house. Absolutely. And so you can imagine there's, thousands of towns throughout Guatemala, well, hundreds of towns throughout Guatemala, thousands throughout Latin America who are dealing with a lot of the same issues.
Wow. Wow. So if you could give one piece of advice to someone wanting to make a difference through sustainability, or sustainable design, what would that be?
Don't stop, right? Keep on going, keep pulling the layers back, keep trying things, keep failing, right? I would say 90% of what we've done has been a huge failure, right? Every time we put up a wall, we have to unpack a tire. It's very frustrating, very annoying, and we keep on doing it. Don't give up, keep trying, keep forcing, keep pressing the issue. You're going to get there.
That's good. No, there's a push these days, for what is known as embodied carbon, if you're familiar, just the amount of energy it takes to create, whether it's concrete or these materials for commercial buildings. And so being more conscious of the amount of work it takes to create, to get concrete, how can we look at different ideas that, like you're saying, that provide the same solution, but are either using waste or a different material that can be more sustainable and less energy intensive. So is there any thoughts around that you would give to the designers in the commercial building world?
Yeah, it'd be great if some of what is out there was accessible to people in the developing countries, because as I watch YouTube videos, I see all these innovations. I know that there's a lot of 3D printing, and there's a lot of ideas out there, but most of those ideas we don't have access to. And if there could be some push towards making those technologies and those ideas, those inventions more available, I think that they would do really well in places like Comalapa, where we don't have to work around sustainability. We
Yeah,
can jump right into it. There isn't already a culture of people who are necessarily not sustainable. They're already living and working through the basics. We could jump right into a sustainable world in in towns like Comalapa.
that's good. That's good. Well, just to kind of go back through, you provided a lot of great, excellent takeaways in terms of informing us about what's happening in countries that experience a lot of poverty and where there is opportunity to improve through green building techniques such as trash to schools, utilizing waste, and the value that it provides for buildings and structures, because there can be alternative ways outside of the typical construction. And you certainly have proved that, and then turn that into education, which I think is very, very valuable. The educating and empowering through the stories that you told around these students, 10th graders, 7th graders are taking this education and then helping their own communities. It doesn't get any better than that. The community collaboration, and then taking this and expanding it to looking at this pilot project, which took a long time but added incredible value, and looking at how this can be expanded to other communities. Absolutely amazing concept, and would love to see further success with this, as it benefits not only you to experience it, but these communities and the development of these communities being able to bettering their community. And really with LWH, incredible work that you guys are doing there with this organization. And then as you mentioned, being able to be exposed for people to understand and see what you're doing, whether they get inspired or find ways to connect to add value to what you're doing, it's certainly important. So where can listeners learn more or support Long Way Home?
Yeah, we're at lwhome.org. Website is fully accessible, and you can also contact me directly. I am MATT at lwhome.org. I'm available for a consultation, for a call, for a conversation. Love talking about this, love getting it out there, love meeting new people, and excited to work with as many people as possible.
Great. Well, thanks again for coming on the show and sharing your incredible experience and what LWH is doing now and has done over the past 17 years. Great stories. And please check out Long Way Home. Look to see how maybe either you can get involved or get inspired. Thanks. That's this episode of Clear Haze Exchange. Thanks again, Matt, for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, everybody, I'm Marcus Hazelwood, and welcome to Clear Haze Exchange. I'm an energy engineer with over 15 years of experience in sustainability and energy efficiency consulting. Many find these topics a little complex, so I created Clear Haze Exchange to help provide clear, actionable insight, clearing the haze, so to speak. We'll cover plenty of topics under the umbrella of energy efficiency and sustainability. Let's get into today's conversation. Thanks for listening to Clear Haze Exchange. New episodes drop every 2 weeks. You can catch Clear Haze Exchange on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and more. Let's clear the haze about sustainability and energy efficiency together. Subscribe now and join the conversation.